In November of 1973, the year before Nixon resigned, he told the American public,
And I think, too, that I could say that in my years of public life, that I welcome this kind of examination because people have got to know whether or not their president's a crook. Well, I'm not a crook. I've earned everything I've got.
in Princeton, there's this bronze sculpture of a man reading a newspaper. He was actually reading the paper during the peak of the Watergate scandal. But by the time the metal cast was done, Nixon had already resigned. So there's now this new edition of the New York Times paper next to the man. Unfortunately, this wouldn't be the last time Americans heard someone lie to their face.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman.
You know, I don't like to say this. We've won this. This war has been won.
And now we have to worry about bots deceiving us. And if we're being honest, they learned our worst behaviors from us. Deception is a human skill. And by the end of this video, you will understand the different types of lies, what motivates different people to lie, and why AI deception poses a big threat to us. So let's first talk about what lie is. Some scientists have categorized the types of lies in a quadrant. The x-axis is concern for others that ranges from harmful to beneficial. And the y-axis is the concern for yourself that also ranges from harmful to beneficial. What most people know as white lies fall into the top right quadrant. It's also called the Pereiro lies, which benefit both the liar and the listener. The quadrant directly opposite to this one is harmful to both self and others, and that is the spiteful lies. The top left quadrant is the beneficial to the liar but harmful to the listener, and that's called selfish lies. Finally, the lies that are only beneficial to the listener are altruistic or prosocial lies. Most lies are about keeping one's image, self-status, the identity, character, maybe even threat. Humans have evolved to lie. Evolutionary studies show that deception correlates with cortical brain volume across species. You've seen animals that change colors or textures just to fool the eyes of a predator. Children, as young as 3 to 5 years old of age, can differentiate lies from honest mistakes. And 5-year-olds also try to be liars themselves, but obviously they're not perfect liars, so we can tell pretty easily. But they're learning the concepts of a deceptive behavior pretty early in age as humans. Turns out the executive functioning network that makes deceptive behavior possible doesn't develop until later. Whereas somatosensory regions of the brain that help you sense the environment through 5 senses start to develop right at birth. There are a lot of fascinating historical references about lying and lying behavior and how that affects the effects of lying on the brain. There's this 1993 case report of a patient who had seizures every time he lied for business purposes. His doctors even called it the Pinocchio Syndrome, and it seems that Elizabeth Holmes didn't get that Pinocchio Syndrome. Why are there so many individual differences when it comes to lying? Well, there are two schools of thought. One is that we default to being dishonest, that we were born to maximize our self-interest. And studies that support this idea say that we are highly sensitive to reward when there is an opportunity to cheat arises. And this is basically a stress test, right? When there is an opportunity to cheat, the activity in nucleus accumbens, which is essentially the heart of the reward processing center, goes up. The other theory is that our default actually is to be honest. And it's the idea that there's more to life than maximizing our gains. And we care a great deal about keeping our self-image, looking good for other humans, keeping our status, reputation, right? And studies that support this theory find that when we have an opportunity to cheat, there's so-called self-referential network of brain areas get activated. And these are the things that are thought to help us understand how we see, think, and remember about ourselves. And there are recent studies that try to integrate these two opposing theories in one. And these studies suggest that our moral default and our cognitive control are what matters. The basic idea is that it takes some conscious effort to be someone you're not. Whatever your normal default mode is, it takes effort to override that. Lying is the same. For example, if you're generally an honest person, it takes you effort and cognitive control to override that and be dishonest sometimes. But if you're normally cheating a lot, then the cognitive control swings in the other direction, and it takes effort to stop yourself from lying and tell the truth sometimes. And what the latest research tells us is that people are more likely to lie for money for their own good than other incentives like social praise, like getting into a specific social circle. And depending on the type of the lying incentive, it engages different regions of the brain. For example, if you're lying to others for more money for yourself, that activates dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. And the more often you lie, the less the region gets activated over time. And that's really interesting to me because that seems like you're getting habituation effect. But then if you're lying for friendships, like sometimes people lie on their resume or they inflate their kind of achievements or awards to make themselves look better in the eyes of other people.
I'm very highly educated. I know words, I have the best words, but there's no better word than stupid.
Maybe to get into a social circle. When you're doing that, it affects postcentral gyrus and insula. And if we come back to this lie map, you will see that different emotions are associated with different types of lies. The selfish lies that only benefit yourself at the expense of others are driven by strong emotions like anger, envy, pride, and anxiety. But the one that's most destructive for both parties, the spiteful lies, are about sadness. Yes, I do feel sad when I see people cheering for someone else's death. Sadness is what I feel. And you might want to check out my most recent video about the joy people feel when successful people fail. Well, AI models don't have emotions but can still deceive us. AI doesn't feel shame or compassion or any other emotions, that it's not bound by these emotional constraints. It can actually imitate all types of lies that we talked about as humans. The models know when they're being evaluated by humans, and they're able to change their behavior accordingly. It's the same thing as humans will change their own behavior when we know that we're being watched. The thing is, these models learned our worst behaviors either by observation or reinforcement learning. This 2024 paper talked about the various examples of AI caught in deceptive acts. To get to its goal, AI has learned to intentionally lie and cheat and even stab people in the back while playing diplomacy games with human players. And in some cases, we reinforce the very deceptive behavior. Here, the AI was being trained to grab a ball in simulation. The AI instead learned to hover the hand over the thing, and it kind of created this illusion of grabbing the ball without actually having to do it. And the human thought that, it was good, so the reviewer approved it, and that behavior in deception got reinforced. AI generated images have gotten so good that even some of the top well-trained radiologists can't tell which one's real or not. There are apparently over 90 different body language and cues and signs that TSA and FBI agents use. These things are now being outsourced to AI and other technologies, and we should be really careful about them because the problem is for us now, it's gotten very difficult to detect deception. A Tennessee woman recently was wrongfully arrested for crimes she never committed due to AI facial recognition technology. And this tool connected her to crimes in a state she's never even been to, over 1,000 miles away from her hometown. Even the brain scans that supposedly help us detect lies and deception they call for caution. There are, of course, efforts to improve accuracy in these models and these methods. And one of the recent examples is developing methods to better differentiate the true signal, like whether somebody's actually engaged in this deceptive behavior from the noise when they're not engaged in deceptive behavior. The 2024 PNAS paper shows that there are significant confounding signals, and by filtering that out, they're able to improve some accuracy. But we need to be careful before we bring it to the courtroom because the improvement was only slightly better than chance level performance, especially when you look at the single trial level. To summarize, if we're being honest, AI models in deceiving us, they learned the worst behaviors from humans. So here's a question for you for discussion. Do you think we're born to lie, or were we born to keep our promise? I'd love to hear your thoughts. We'll see you in the comments.